Okay, so today we're going to talk about a little bit more about supply and demand curves and kind of the movement of the supply and demand curve. So here we have a demand curve that's downward sloping to the right because as we know, as the price goes down, the quantity demanded will go up and the supply curve goes in the different direction because as the price goes up, suppliers will supply more. And of course, this is our equilibrium point. Now, there are a couple things that can happen. Let's say eating oranges. This is the supply and demand curve. I should have said for oranges. Eating oranges decreases the risk of diabetes. Well, if we're decreasing the risk of diabetes, i.e., a health benefit, that's going to impact the consumers. So it's going to impact the demand curve, and it's a positive impact. So it's going to shift the demand curve to the right. Okay, so I always think of this as is this changing the demand or is it changing the supply? And that usually is it affecting, if it's affecting consumers, it's going to change the demand. If it's affecting producers, it's going to change the supply curve. If it's positive, it's going to shift the curve to the right. If it's negative, it's going to shift the curve to the left. So in this case, eating oranges decreases the risk of diabetes. That's positive to the consumer, and it's positive, so it'll shift the demand curve to the right. And here's the demand curve shift to the right. Now, at the same time, farmers use new fertilizers that make oranges more productive. Well, new fertilizer, that impacts the producers or the suppliers. And this is a positive change, so it's going to shift it to the right. And that's our second change right here. Now we get a new equilibrium point. We can determine that the quantity is always going to increase because of these two events. We don't know the price change, if the price will change or not, because we don't know the magnitude of each one of these changes. But the way I think of supply and demand curve changes or shifts is my first question to myself is, okay, who's being impacted? The consumer or the supplier? If it's the consumer, my demand curve is going to shift. If it's a positive change, it's going to shift to the right. If it's a negative change, it's going to shift to the left. And that's true for both the demand and the supply curve. So, again, who's being impacted, the consumer or the supplier, and is it a positive change or a negative change? So if it's the consumer, positive change, I'm going to shift the demand curve to the right. If it's the consumer, negative change, I'm going to shift the demand curve to the left. If it's a supplier, positive change, I'm going to shift the supply curve to the right. If it's a supplier, negative change, I'm going to shift the supply curve to the left. Hope this helps. Have a good day.